For more insight on the new language policy in China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. They are Dr. Dong YIKUN, from School of English and International Studies at Beijing Foreign Studies University; EINAR TANGEN, Current Affairs Commentator; GREGORY Tanaka, Visiting Distinguished Fellow at the Institute of McLaren. Welcome to all of you. Dr. Dong, why don't I start with you? I mean, from your vantage point, how do you look at this new policy, this new language policy in Inner Mongolia, and why has it been so controversial?
Briefly speaking, I think I was not surprised by the policy and maybe the concerns that arose after the release of the news. I think that probably the grassroots and also the Mongolian community in Inner Mongolia, they may not as well informed as I do, since I have the bigger picture of how this national standardized curriculum has been exercised since 2017. So that's why Inner Mongolia is one of the area that just launched this new bilingual education policy.
But would it be fair to say that this policy is about making Mandarin the main language, the erosion of Mongolian language, kids don't get to learn Mongolian? How do you look at that narrative, Dr. Dong? To a large extent, this is due to the information gap. I think, according to the information the news release, that there is no significant reduce of the part of the Mongolian language teaching, but rather we can see an emerging or the increasing share of Chinese teaching. So I think that the main reason from my standpoint is that the international media, they are not very familiar with this issue, or not very familiar with the Inner Mongolia compared with the same issue in Tibetan area and the Xinjiang area. So I think that this concerns arose largely due to the information gap. Well, EINAR, tell me what you think. I mean, I lived in America for 8 years, and according to my humble observation, whether you're Hispanic, black, white, or Asian, or mixed, you've got to learn English at school, no?
Yes, I mean, English is not the official language of the United States. There's been a lot of controversies on that. But I think there's some information that, yes, de facto, and absolutely, if you go to a school, you are going to have to learn English. But there's some information that might be helpful to people who are watching from abroad. First off, the Chinese language, written language, is not phonetic. You look at it, you can read it, but you can't, it doesn't not tell you how it's pronounced. So everywhere in China, even it's cities that are 10, 15 miles apart, they'll speak a slightly different patois. Different local language. Sometimes it can be understood by other people, sometimes it cannot. So throughout China, there has been this desire to create a national language, which is Mandarin, not create it, to adopt and speak this national language in the interest of trade, education, advancement. So when you start talking about these other areas, they're simply following what national China, everybody in China, 95+% has been doing for these many, many years. They're simply adopting a language that they can communicate in. If China was not to do this in Xinjiang, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, in essence, what it would be doing would be creating a kind of apartheid. These people would not have the ability to go beyond their geographical borders, nor would they be able to have much advancement because they would not be able to communicate with the rest of the world, especially when it came to trade. You would be, in essence, sentencing them to only working in local areas, probably at depressed wages. So this is a necessary part of what China is doing. It's slowly catching up. It probably should have done this quite some time ago. But, you know, the international reaction to this has been way out of proportion. countries do this themselves. All right, they insist that there's a national language and everybody is supposed to learn it. Why? Not to suppress local languages or culture, but simply to put everybody on the same footing, to guarantee that there's equality of opportunity. So, you know, this I would put down to more just unqualified ignorant attacks on a culture that many people just don't understand.
Well, Gregory, do you have anything to add? I mean, what do you think about this new policy, you know, more emphasis on Mandarin in Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region? Gregory?
Well, I would have two comments. One is that if you're going to do this, you have to do it in the early grades in elementary school, because most of the literature out there in education research confirms that kids can learn two languages a lot more easily in the elementary grades than in high school or, let's say, college. So doing it at that young age is a good idea. I will speak a little bit on my second point, a little bit on behalf of the Mongolian people, which is the two instances I know of where a culture, a people has sort of been dominated by a more powerful culture, and that is that those people can retain their language if they're allowed to keep their cultural institutions vibrant. So one case is Hawaii, where they're actually trying to catch up and rebuild Hawaiian culture and relearn the Hawaiian language. And so that actually has tourist value also. So for both China and the people of Mongolia will all benefit if a lot of outside tourists come in and, of course, spend money in Mongolia because they want to visit. So that can happen if the culture is retained and it's something distinct and something interesting to come visit as a tourist. The second example is among the American Indians in the United States, where there are quite a few different nations or tribes remaining in the United States. But one of them was studied by my former professor, Paul Cross-Gritty, and he came up with this term called repertoire of identities. That is, the Tewa Indians of Arizona living on Hopi land, which is another Indian nation, but having to go to school in a white-dominant English-speaking school system, were allowed to practice their culture of Tewa Indians, and they wanted to learn the culture of the Hopi Indians because their reservation was kind of on Hopi land. And then thirdly, they wanted to develop the language use capabilities of English so they could get a job and go on to college and graduate school. So that's called a repertoire of identities. So that is also promoted if you retain the cultural institutions of the people, in this case of Mongolia. And that can be done without threat to, you know, any political threat or economic threat. It's actually a good thing all the way around. So I would say it's okay to do it if you allow the local cultural institutions to flourish and teach multiple identities for each kid.
Yeah, thank you for that comparative, you know, analysis perspective. Dr. Dong, let me go back to you. I mean, of course, the introduction of Mandarin as the medium language of instruction for the Mongolian kids will be introduced in a course of 3 years. It's not just, overnight. But, why focusing on these 3 courses? Literature, Chinese language, which that is one course, Chinese language and literature, ethics and law, and history. I mean, why are these classes picked as the main, that will be taught in Mandarin for these Mongolian kids?
Yeah, so these 3 courses, it is not China-specific or made in China policy. So this is a worldwide practice that for China, for about bilingual education, the core curriculum would be literature, law and ethics, and history. So because these subjects are ideology related, and also they are much to do with what you're going to engage these ethnic minorities, what stories you will expose them to, and also what kind of younger generation with ethnic minority backgrounds would grow up and serve the country and serve the people and be a useful person in
cultural and ideological context. So that's why, my understanding of why choose these three subjects as the core curriculum of the language policy, of education policy.
Right. EINAR, I mean, you lived in China for a long time. Let's face it, there's such a thing as Hanchauvinism, right? After all, we, Han, the Han Chinese, make up over 90% of the population. Where is the balance between, curbing this Han chauvinism while promoting and cultivating ethnic culture and traditions?
Well, I think Xi Jinping said it when he was introducing this policy. He encouraged the local people, Han people, anybody coming from outside, to learn these local languages. And this is something that is not a feature in the United States, either in Hawaii or any kind of Indian tribes. There's no effort being made to say, oh, everybody should learn this language to respect the culture and the geography from which they're in. So I think that's what it comes from. It's a question of leadership. Yes, when you have a majority, there's always a question about how the minority are being treated. But quite frankly, the minorities in China, all 55 of them, have been treated very, very well. I mean, they were given special exemptions to have more children. They were given special job opportunities in some cases. If they were able to learn Chinese, there were special positions available to them within the government. This actually created some friction with the Han majority, because they said, well, why are they doing less and getting more? Shouldn't they become more like us? So there's always a delicate balance, but so far it's, China has been trying extremely hard. Unfortunately, it's just not apparent to the rest of the world, or in this particular case, I do think politics is a large part of it. We've already seen this report by the guy who's in charge of Homeland Security, intelligence section, being told, don't concentrate on one country, concentrate on vilifying Iran and China. I mean, this gives you a perfect picture that this is not all about a moral outrage, about a culture being destroyed. It's simply politics as usual in a world that doesn't want to understand.
Let's look at some comments from our viewers online, if we can show you guys some of them. Do we have them? Yes. Sentinel, this friend, says, no fairness, just political manipulation to gain power and then set all the rules. Well, it's a very sharp comment over there. Gregory, what do you think? I mean, where's the balance between, preserving cohesion, unity of the society while promoting ethnic culture and tradition and language?
I think that last comment, that question from the audience was very good. And I think the balance will be seen in the extent to which Mongolian-owned businesses can continue to thrive, especially the ones that extract resources and export them. Because Mongolia has a lot of resources, just like China has a lot of rare earth minerals that the outside world wants. Mongolia has a lot of minerals also. And so the extent to which the earned wealth from businesses can stay in the country and be shared among the Mongolian people will be one of the measures by which you study whether there's a good balance, a fair balance. And it's win-win for both Mongolian people and also the larger entity of China itself. And so that will be the measure I would use. Are the resources, the benefits from the resources, allowed to stay in Mongolia for the most part and then can be shared with people of China?
That's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Dr. Dong, Gregory, EINAR, for your insight. And that would do it for this edition of The Point. Headline Buster brought to you by The Point. I'm Wang Guan, sitting in for Liu Xin. Hope to see you again next Friday. Bye for now.